Hi everyone, I'm Rita Kakati-Shah, your host for the Uma Show. Welcome to your one-stop journey for feeling empowered. We're a platform for change, we build confidence, we are your voice. We want you to be bold, be you, be Uma. Today, we're exploring women in diversity and inclusion, and I'm so excited to be joined by a goddess of go-getting, Sharmishta Chatterjee Banerjee, who is joining us from the Netherlands, and she is the Policy Director, Internationalization at Radboud University's Nijmegen School of Management. Welcome, Sharmishta.
Thank you so much, Rita. Delighted to be here.
So tell us, you're a girl from Kolkata originally. Tell us about your upbringing and how you grew up.
So yes, very much from Kolkata and very proud to be from Kolkata. So I grew up as part of a very large joint family. So our house in Kolkata is actually 5 addresses into one of the very few still standing on a main road, and very few people living there at the moment. But I grew up in a bustling household. My grandfather, who was the patriarch of the family, a very eminent lawyer, who taught us, very much so that, work, professional life must be balanced with, family life, values, and integrity and honesty above all, even if that meant, having a little bit less than others.
Right.
I went to school to Loretto House, which is again very much, it's a convent, an Irish convent, very value-led, value-driven. My dad, one of the most hardworking men that I've seen, for whom again, it was very important to be loyal to his employer, even if that meant, going to evacuate very many Indians from Kuwait during the Gulf War.
Wow.
My mum, convent educated again, but adjusted to the norms of a very traditional, but, liberal thinking joint family. So that's how I grew up, and, very, very quite fortunate to have grown up in such, in such a big family, to be honest, where you learned bits from everybody.
I can imagine. It sounds like you've got that really, really close-knit bond. You had certainly with your parents and your value system. So I really, really love that. So walk us a little bit through your education. You did a BA in political science and international relations from the Jadavpur University in India to becoming an alumna of the University of California's W30 Leadership Program.
Yeah, to be honest, Rita, my life and my career, you could actually call it, a bit sort of like not so planned, but something that happens serendipitously. So, as my mentor, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Newcastle University, says, it's not important always to have a plan, and, you must think about, what are the stretch opportunities rather than always thinking about the ladders. And when she told me that, I thought, well, does she know what I actually have done with myself, or is it something that she's just talking about from her experience or where she is? So I did a degree in an honors degree in political science and international relations from Jadavpur University. Again, one of the best in Calcutta and certainly in India, and now very much recognized in the world as well. And from there, while still doing my master's, I started working for Jet Airways in what would be considered a graduate job in today's world. Yeah. And it was, sort of like launching at that time. Gosh, I'm revealing my age here, of course, but as India's, top private airline. And it was great to work there, to learn. My father worked for Air India, so it was very much sort of, getting that experience of what he did, what his world was all about. And, a year and a half into that, I got married. So I moved to Netherlands with my husband, and there, because of every issue that every immigrant faces around work permits, etc., I wasn't able to work. But I spent a lot of time devoting to my dance. I am an Indian classical dancer, so I performed in many shows in the Netherlands, and then we moved to Belgium. and then from Belgium to Belfast in the Northern Ireland, where I gave birth to my son. So, and that's when I consciously actually decided that I did not want to seek opportunities to work or to study, because I wanted to devote my time to him. I wanted to experience motherhood, see what it's like, and also obviously ensure that he had, good start to life. And so I didn't work for until he was about 16 months old. And from there, I then, faced the challenge that, again, I think most immigrants face, which is when you go out with a degree that you think that you have done, you have excelled in, but isn't recognized in that part of the world where you now reside. So it was almost impossible to find the right opportunity. I had gaps in my CV. I had gaps, not that much of work experience. So at that point, I found an opportunity funded by the government, which was to get people back into work, which was in e-commerce. So I did a certification course in that and found an opportunity with a global email company. And whilst, many people rejected that offer to work with them, I thought it was the best offer in the world, because it was something that helped me to work evenings and nights, which meant I had all the time in the world during the day with my son. But a few months into that job, we moved again, and this time to Southampton. And here, actually, my travel experience came in really handy. So I landed up in a marketing role with Cunard, the cruise brand. And worked with them for a couple of years, developing my marketing and branding skills, was part of the rebranding project. And then from there, what happened is I saw this advert from the Higher Education Founding Council, and they were wanting professional marketers to come into higher education as professionals. But in return, they were going to fund me to do my master's.
Amazing.
So there was quite a lot of competition, as you can imagine, but I managed to get that position. So the day my son started reception, which is kindergarten, in school, I also went back to school to do my master's. So worked in higher education marketing, completed my master's from Nottingham Business School. And then from there, I went into my first proper higher education job at Newcastle University, where, after a few years climbing the ranks, they sent me, Newcastle University is a really good investor in people, and they sent me to do the W30 program at UCLA. So that was quite a long-winded answer to your question, but I had to take you through the journey.
Amazing. So there we go. That's quite an amazing journey that you've had. And you've actually gained much recognition in your work in the diversity and inclusion space, such as receiving the Asian Women Enterprising Award from Asian Business Connections, ABC, in the UK, and that was back in 2019. You've also been nominated for the D&I Award by the Institute of Directors, and recently been recognized as one of the most influential South Asians of 2020. I mean, congratulations. Tell us a little bit about what first inspired your passion for diversity and inclusion initiatives.
Thank you, Rita. Yes, the 2020 influential list really threw me off my guard and by surprise, totally. But felt very humbled by it, of course, and honored to be in the company of such inspirational people. But I could say that it is probably my career in higher education, which led to my conscious realization of the lack of inclusion within the higher education space. So when you look at universities worldwide, particularly I'm talking about the Western world, and the sort of conspicuous gap in terms of presidents and vice chancellors, particularly if you look at Europe, in terms of Black or brown people of color, assuming positions of responsibility and honor at universities. And my personal experience wasn't very different either. So when I joined Newcastle in a group of 60 professionals just within the business school where I worked, and I'm not talking about the academic staff, I was actually the only person of color. And this is not conscious, this is not that people weren't, people were being consciously excluded, but it's just that unless you are, in the space where you see others like you,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to be on your own. And one thing led to another, and then it led me to sort of like, question the why.
Right.
Why is it that we don't see so many people who look like me, who talk like me, who might be from a different country, but might be from the UK as well in the
Yeah.
space. And when you look at the statistics and the demographics, it's not always true that these regions are have those demographic gaps.
Yeah.
So it was more a case of like, is it complacence? Is it ignorance? Is it the lack of training? Is it the lack of ambition? And that led me to really think about and to consciously plan how we can try to close this sort of gap.
Yeah.
To which, of course, Newcastle University was very supportive, particularly working with my mentor, Professor Sanders. I managed to do a few things in this space. But
Yeah.
if I'm being totally honest, Rita, did it really start actually from my job perspective? And this is what, kind of led me to question myself. And I thought, no, actually not. It started maybe inadvertently. I was asking the whys right from my childhood. So being a not so fair girl, the amount of times you're told that you should try skin lightening products at home, the malai, the cream on your face and the turmeric on your face, to sometimes sort of being excluded by a great aunt, which I could fortunately laugh at, that from dinner invitations to, again, people sort of after I got married saying to me how much more fair my husband was from me.
Wow.
So, made me actually think about inclusion in a very different space, and that we as Asians have to do a lot in our own backyards before we can actually go and question the
Yeah,
world.
you're so right about that, because a lot of it is cultural. And to your point, I mean, you've been in the diverse inclusion space now for quite a while and a complete advocate for that space. But I think I love the fact that you've had that personal background and the cultural background as well, because it isn't just, opportunities, that's one part. But if you've come from that and you've felt it yourself and you've seen it where, your own family, friends, or your own communities are seeing things a certain way, that's the crux of part of the issue there in itself, the underlying issue. So I love the fact that you're kind of actually trying to look at some of that to try and address it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you actually think about it, we're all thinking about Black Lives Matter, but how many of us, and I'm talking particularly about Asians, actually, we're always out to, we're very ready to say that we have been treated not so well, but how do we treat others?
Yeah.
Where is it? Are we prepared to have those conversations about what equality and equity really mean? And are we prepared to actually stand up for others? So I think it's very important that we question ourselves first about inclusion before we go out to set the world right.
Absolutely. It's our own value systems. You've just hit the nail on the head there. It's about who we are, how we've been brought up. And it's those biases that we all naturally have. And how does that impact how we address other people in the way we think as well? So I love the fact that you've actually said that as well, because it's recognizing what makes up who we are as well. So you've obviously been in this space for a while, and you've also pivoted to diversity inclusion in more ways than one. You mentioned that you are a trained classical Indian dancer and that you actually choreograph and perform pieces that drive inclusion. So tell us a bit about that.
So that is totally, Rita, that's totally inspired by Tagore and Tagore's, philosophy around inclusion. The whole sort of ethos around the fact that inclusion must exist in its true form, whether that's physical, whether that's spiritual, whether that's in education, stems from that. So what I have been doing is choreographing a lot of Tagore's works. So when you think about gender and you think about his works, such as Shama, such as Shapmochon, you see women being in power, women making the choices, women, showing their vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
women being able to accept that they make mistakes, and so they are in a position to rectify them and move forward. When you look at Chandalika, you see the whole concept of untouchability, where societal norms are basically, and this is something written centuries ago, so where he is basically saying, look, for an equitable society, changes are very important. And these are things that the Western world probably does not know about.
Yeah.
When they think about developing countries, they think about, Asia, you feel that everybody's repressed. And that's not the case. So through my dance, what my message has been is very much around, look, these philosophies, these
Yeah.
ideas have existed, they have been practiced. It exists in Indian societies as well. And not just that the West has a lot to give to the East, but the East also has a lot to give to the West. And
Absolutely.
that's how I started translating and presenting the works in English.
Absolutely. And I think that's beautiful. I mean, the work of Rabindranath Tagore anyway is just so incredible. And I think, to your point, I mean, I've often quoted little pieces of the English translated versions in some of the talks I've done as well. And I think exactly to your point, there is so much in Eastern philosophy that you can totally take and use in different walks of life around the world. So I love that. So now talk to us a little bit about your current role as policy director of internationalization, Radboud University's Nijmegen School of Management.
So my role is a strategic role. So Nijmegen School of Management is basically it's a very interdisciplinary faculty. So that's what attracted me to the role, because in most business school senses you think about economics, management, and accounting, but this school is very much about bringing the interdisciplinary forces from economics, from management, but also from human geography, from politics, and from public administration,
Right.
into creating business education that can influence societal challenges and governance around it. So, and this is where the school is based in Netherlands. It's actually one of it's the top university in terms of student experience, a very research intensive university, but they want to take their work more global. So I was headhunted for it, and it was in the midst of lockdown actually. So everything was online, and I managed to, they offered me the job, and then came the dilemma of whether I take it, whether I don't take it. It's all those things with relocation, etc. But the role involves me influencing, looking at their internationalization strategy across the piece, so research, student experience, education, how the school engages with the corporate world, and how we develop students who become responsible managers and truly global graduates. So are they really ready to be globalized enough to deal with the future of work?
Absolutely. And very, very important work right there. You've also talked in the past about the importance of equal partnership when it comes to professional and your personal life as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, Rita, I think when people talk about equal partnership, they think about particularly in a family situation, they think about chemistry, earning the money, gender fluidity, who does what chores, and I just think it's about mindset. It's about knowing each other and being there not only for each other, but also being able to encourage and almost mobilize each other's potentials. And again, if you see my career, I'm not so sure I would be here if it hadn't been for my husband and my family being behind me in all of this. So, even with this job at Nijmegen, it was, my son telling me that this was now my turn to do what I wanted. And he's only 21. That makes a difference. And that's where I think it's a real leveler. Your family has to be the real leveler when it comes to your professional and your personal fulfillment. And that's where I feel that it is an equal partnership. We all have our roles to play, and it is about being able to really think about and like what that person would think about. So I mean, if to really be able to walk in that person's shoes really and think about what would I do if I were in their position.
Absolutely. And I think to 100% agree with your point there. I think, everybody does need that support network, as you've said, but also in your household, you need to share out and be able to communicate and let each other know what's going on, so you can actually be and form that partnership as well. Whether in my case it's like homeschooling or pick up and drop off, whatever it is, it's the same kind of thing. It needs to work on a partnership for it to be successful. So I really kind of admire the fact that that is your policy and that is how you run it. And your son actually tells you to, go out and do it. I love that. Amazing stuff.
Absolutely. I think for all of us, who are, and I know that you do as well, you live away from family, you've chosen to go to New York, and for all of us who haven't got that family support, that is really important. You raise your children, you're focusing on your career, you want to come back into, do things, you're always feeling a little bit guilty somewhere that you're not doing the right thing. So I think without that family support, and as I said, it's not about just, for me, it's not just about the chores. It's about being there to push me a lot, because I could be so complacent. I could just say, oh well, even with this job, it was like, oh well, I got it, but so what? I don't think I can do it. And somebody pushing you to say, no, you should do it, because these opportunities don't come. And that's where I really feel that that equal partnership is really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And that is a challenge to many as well, I guess. Along your years and your career, there must have been some challenges that you felt along the way. Could you share any with us, and perhaps how you sort of came about them?
Sure. I mean, as I've spoken about a few things, being the only brown face doesn't help. Not that I've been treated unfairly or anything, but it is, every time your name, is, and I was very, very firm from the beginning that my name has to be pronounced exactly in the way it is. A few iterations here and there is fine, but no, if I can say Kiva to somebody who spells their name as Caiomhe, then Sharmishta is possible. So I mean, to that point, I don't think I faced any challenges that any immigrant woman or any other woman wouldn't have faced in their careers, where you're trying to, kind of balance family, career, trying to make your way through the career ladder, trying to almost find yourself, because, I started out quite young in my career, but then I had a career break, and, with children and with my child coming in, and then, family issues, etc. So that's where I feel that those are challenges everybody faces. So my challenge, Rita, has been more with myself. So it's more about, about how do I become more resilient, how do I stop taking things more personally? So, so if somebody says something to me, whether that's personally or whether that's professionally, I used to fester a lot around it. Or why did that happen? What do I do? How do I change that? How do I, what should I have done? Why? And that's something a lot of women do. And that is a challenge that I've overcome by thinking about, look, that's happened. And to be resilient, I have to be more kind to myself. So yes, it's happened. It's not going to happen again. It's a mistake. We all make mistakes. I've got to learn from it, and I've got to make sure that I deal with it so that it never happens again. And in that, I've got to look after myself, because if I don't look after myself, I can't really look after others.
Yeah. And that's spot on. Right. Yeah, right there. Because to your point, things happen. And, we can't obviously control some of the things that happen, but what we can control, we are in charge of, is our reaction and what we do to do something about the situation. And it's really a mindset thing. It's about having that confidence and communicating, to your point, and building up that resilience to do that, to say that, okay, fine, I might be the only person here. Or, for me personally, Sharmishta, when I moved to the US, my name very simple, Rita. But in the US, it's pronounced Reader. And I'm like, yes, I know I do like to read books and all that, but please pronounce the P. So little things like that, I would just correct people, and I still do, like, oh, yeah, it's actually Rita. And I do it politely, but that's my thing. And I used to be embarrassed about it. Now I'm like, it's just, that's my name. That's who I am. So pronounce it correctly. So I think it's those little sort of nuggets that really help stem people forward, really. Before we let you go, what words of wisdom would you give to any sort of young girls out there who kind of want to follow your footsteps and wanted to get into that diversity and inclusion space?
I just want to say, be your authentic self. So, don't seek endorsements all the time. I think we spend a lifetime seeking endorsements, whether that's from family, friends, employers, our professional careers. Do what you want to do. You have one life to lead.
Yeah.
And, be Uma and be a go-getter. Do what you want to do. Achieve that. And it's not the end of the world if you don't achieve it either. It's fine. As long as you've tried, it's good enough. And it's not something that you have to continue to do all your life. You can change your path as many times as you want.
Very, very, very well said. Thank you so much, Sharmishta, for sharing your inspiring journey with us today. Sharmishta Chatterjee Banerjee, Policy Director, Internationalization at Radford University's Nugmoyan School of Management. And thank you to our viewers for joining us on this empowerment journey today. We want you all to embrace that inner goddess of go-getting. We want you to be bold, be you, be Uma.